Trail, Chapter 32. In Carter Notch Hut, I gave the cook Andy's lucky marble. I feel a twinge of nervousness as the marble drops from my hand into the cook's open palm. From now on, I'm going to have to create all my good luck myself. The cook invites me to spend the night in one of the bunkhouses, but I tell him that I'm fine. He directs me to a stealth site half a mile farther down the trail where I set up camp. That night, I let Moose into the tent. I keep my arm around him until he falls asleep. The next morning, I pack up early and head out. It's another 275 miles to the top of Katahdin. I've been on the trail for 11 days. I have 40 days left before school starts. Before I've told Gran I would be back. Plenty of time to make it. Getting on late afternoon, I met a southbound thru hiker named Washboard. He's got a gnarly head of dreadlocks piled around his head, and his shirt is nowhere to be seen. His stomach ripples every time he moves. It's easy to see how he got his name. Washboard looks me over. You got some rough stuff ahead of you, man. You ever heard of the Killer Mile? The Killer Mile? I scoff. Well, I'm about to tell Washboard that I've already gone 100 miles over the wind and hail of Washington, and I can handle myself. Thank you very much. But then I catch a closer look at Washboard's bare skin. It is covered. Let me double check that. It is covered is scrapes and scratches. Ooh, I think I found a typo. Whoa, a typo that should be in. It is covered in scrapes and scratches. It looks like a panther tore up his right side. I shiver. Washboard looks like a hardcore hiker. It must have taken some nasty trail for him to get so beat up. They call it the hardest mile on the whole AT. Took me an hour and a half to get through it. Washboard shakes his head. Man, I'm glad I'm done with that piece. How far up ahead is it for me? I ask. Well, I would say about 30 miles. When you see a peeling birch tree with two banged in trail signs, one that says something about goose and another that's got speck on it, that's when you know that the trail is about to get real hairy. Washboard points to the scratches on his belly. I got these scrambling over boulders. He turns and shows me a long line of scrapes down the right side of his back. And I got these scrambling under boulders, he said, turning back around and pointing downward. Are from tripping over all the roots in the ground. It looks like a few baseball bats went swinging at his knees. They're covered in dark, angry purple bruises. I thank Washboard for the warning and continue on my way. The weather is hot and fine, and my legs carry me. Over 13 miles and 7 peaks before I make camp at Rattle River Shelter for the night. As the sun sinks, I boil up some pasta and fork the noodles down as I spread open a trail map of northern New Hampshire and Maine. If I keep going at my pace, we'll be in Maine in a day or two and at the top of Katahdin in 3 weeks. You and me, we're going to make it, I tell Moose. Moose woofs. That night, my aloneness feels different from the first few days when I went on the trail. I have a dog outside protecting me. I'm no longer a starving, clueless kid. Hey, Lucas, I whisper into the quiet of the tent and the stars above my head. I can feel him smiling down at me. I'm doing it, buddy. I fall asleep to the sound of crickets chirping and the rustle of wind through the trees. Ooh, we have the bear. What does that mean? Flashback. The next morning, I wake up to quiet. Oh, maybe not. This bear has a different meaning now. Maybe it's just a break. I make a bowl of oatmeal and swirl a couple spoonfuls of peanut butter into it. Moose wags his tail expectantly. I plop out some of the nutty oatmeal for him. Moose laps up the oatmeal and is still looking at me with hungry eyes, so I dig in my pack and feed him the last of the dog biscuits I'd gotten at Lonesome Lake. He wolfs them down, finishing off the last crumb. Once Moose is fed, it's time to go. After cleaning my cookware in the nearby river, I refill my water bottles, wipe them dry on my shirt. poke my sleeping bag back in its stuff sack, deflate my sleeping pad, and push them. Oh, that's weird. There's an ant on my book. Get out of here, ant. All right. I refill my water bottles. Oh, no, he's still there. Wipe them dry on my shirt, poke my sleeping bag back in the stuff sack, deflate the pad, push them into my pack. I break down the tent and lash it to the outside of my pack. I call the moose and we're off. In less than an hour, we reach a road. I pull out my map. It's Route 2, about 2 miles west to the town of Gorham. I know from the lightness in my pack that I need to resupply. Moose and I walk along the real road into Gorham. I tell him to stay outside as I enter a Cumberland Farms gas station, kind of like an Arco. Inside, I grab energy bars, pasta, and boxes of rice and beans, as well as a 3-pound bag of M&Ms. I find the pet aisle and stock up on a 10-pound bag of Purina for Moose. I also get trail maps for Maine. The map Andy had given me only covered New Hampshire. At the register, I unroll 3 20s. The cashier hands me my change of 67 cents. Ooh, or 67 hundredths of a dollar. I study a plastic March of Dimes donation box on the counter. With so much food weight, I'm trying to figure out if the coin weight is worth it. I realize that I'm thinking about weight this way. A small curl of pride courses through me. I'm thinking like winging it. I'm thinking like a thru hiker. I drop the coins in the donation box and head outside. My pack full and heavy, I pick up Moose, and we return to the trail. Despite the weight, I hike another 13 miles before setting up camp at a shelter. I'm doing great. Maybe the bear has a new meaning now. The next day, the trail climbs through the thick spruce forests, and I pass the sign that Washboard told me about. Soon the trail is choked with boulders. Some of the rocks are as big as houses. We're descending into Mahoosuc Notch, the killer mile. The temperature drops about 20 degrees. Even in July, there are patches of ice tucked into corners underneath freezing rocks. Broken rocks scatter at my feet as if giants had been hurling them like snowballs. Fallen trees lie with their mud-encrusted roots fanning out to form humps of writhing earthworms and rotting bark. It is creepy here. Even the birds seem to have abandoned this place, choosing the warmer temperatures above the notch. The trail narrows until it is just a waterfall of fallen boulders. When a thick brown arrow marking the path points under a stack of looming rocks, I think about Washboard and his scrapes and bruises. Mist descends on us, thick and cloudy as milk. Granite cliffs rise above. I feel like I'm gradually being squeezed between a rock giant's hands. That's a mouthful. Let me read it again. I feel like I'm gradually being squeezed between a rock giant's hands. I squirm between 2 boulders the size of cars. My pack scrapes along the sides, and a water bottle clunks onto the ground. Dislodged by the rocks, I pick it up and stuff it deep into my side pocket. After it does it a second time, I stop to mash both bottles inside my pack. The trail sprouts jagged blades of rock that become more and more difficult to navigate. Moose keeps trotting forward, then dancing back, running into me over and over again. Sometimes I have to pick him up and carry him over the slick, steep boulders. I'm not very good at it, and more than once I almost drop him. Even though I've built up a lot of strength on the trail, Moose has been getting heavier. I'm sure I've been feeding him far more than his previous owner. Plus, all the gas station food and my gear have made my pack bulky. It scrapes against the rocks at every turn. It takes me and Moose 3 hours to get through the 1 mile of the notch. After the ups and downs, the trail turns into marshes and bogs with nowhere dry to set down a tent. The last glimmer of sunset are fading by the time I reach a shelter. The next day, the trail spills into an empty parking lot. I pour some Purina for Moose, and he wolfs it down. As I devour a Snickers and reach for a water bottle, I realize that I only have 2 mouthfuls of liquid left. There's a river next to the road. I fill up on water and root around my hood pocket for my iodine pills. I can't find them. I pull everything out, checking and rechecking, triple checking. They're not there. The nagging voice of doubt that I thought I had conquered on top of Washington is suddenly back. Did you really think you would be rid of your rotten luck? It whispers to me. Of course you would lose them. I try to ignore the voice. At least I'm by a road where I can hitchhike into a town and get another bottle of iodine pills. I pull out my map and check. I shove everything back into my pack and stick out my thumb. Ooh, side note, children, do not hitchhike. It is dangerous. Chapter 33. 4 hours later, I realized how dumb I was to believe it would be easy to hitch. According to my map, the stretch of road where I'm trying to thumb is a lift. A lift is 10 miles from the nearest town. Only 3 cars have passed, and none of them stopped for a scruffy-looking 12-year-old standing next to a huge battered backpack and a scrawny dog. Another hour passes. It's nearly evening. I'm just ready to give up when a car roars up. It is black and shiny and expensive looking. The windows are tinted. The window on the driver's side rolls down. A middle-aged man with greased black hair turns his head toward me in the dimming light. He's wearing reflective sunglasses. I can't see his eyes. Hey, kid, he says, you want a ride? There's something funny about the way he's saying his words. They are thick and sloppy, like an oil slick. Moose barks once, then again loudly. This time, I can hear the warning in his voice. Come here, kid, says the driver. He pulls his glasses away. His eyes look strange and very bloodshot. I don't know what to do. I could accept a ride with the stranger. I may not like the way he looks, but I need the iodine pills. The man crooks his finger at me. Kid, come here. His voice is commanding, hypnotic. I walk up to the car, up close. I can see the sweat stains under his button-up shirt. His teeth are yellow. There's smell coming from him. Old tobacco smoke and something else. No one else in the car with him. I want you to get in the car right now. The man glares at me. His hand reaches for the door handle. It hits me. Booze. The man smells like booze. Moose barks crazily as I step back. The man opens the door as I turn around and run. I reach my pack, and for the moment, my hand goes to scoop it up. It's my lifeline in the woods. But then the man is behind me, closing in fast. Moose jumps in front of him, growling, his teeth bared. The man curses, and he kicks Moose in the side hard. Moose yelps and stumbles back to me. I abandon my pack and pick up Moose. Holding my dog to my chest, I run full tilt into the darkening woods. Kid, kid, screams the man. I ignore him and scramble into a thicket of scratchy briars. They dig into my pants, but I pull free and keep running. Ooh, scary. I'm not on the trail. I'm trying to get lost somewhere in the forest. The man's voice fades, then goes away completely. I slow down, panting, listening for him. Nothing. Moose is trembling in my arms. I see a felled tree trunk lying across the way. It's a huge beech tree with its branches spreading out like angel wings. I gently place Moose under the tree and wriggle beside him. Don't bark, Moose, I whisper. Don't make a noise. It's going to be okay, boy. We lie there frozen until the last of the sunset fades through the trees and nighttime blankets the woods in a protective dark. Only then do I dare to move. There's no sign of the man, no hint of flashlight, no footsteps, nothing. I'm safe. I pick up Moose again and try to retrace my steps, but as the night grows deeper, I realize that I have no idea where I am. A twig breaks behind me, and my heart explodes with fear. I begin to run blindly, tripping over unseen rocks and roots. It isn't until I smash into a tree and Moose whimpers that I realize I cannot panic. I stop. In the utter dark, I realize something. Moose depends on me. And right now, in this moment, I need to depend on myself for us. I can't huddle into the sleeping bag and feel sorry for myself. I have to get us out of this. Think, Toby, I say to myself. What do you need to stay alive? I have no food. I have no water. I have no tent. There's no wooden shelter to protect me. It is full on dark. I've completely failed my keeps list. But there is that tree and a rising moon that is softly illuminating the forest. I can keep warm. In the pale, ghostly light, I make my way back to the dead beach. I scrape together a pile of leaves and push them against the trunk, and then put Moose inside the shuffle in, and I shuffle in next to him. I curl into a tight ball around my dog. The leaves rustle and shift, covering me and Moose. I'm sorry, covering me. Me and Moose aren't exactly comfortable, and I don't get a lot of sleep. But when the pale streaks of dawn come, we are still very much alive. Ooh, getting exciting.